And then just real quick for our presenters, when the PowerPoint is up, please turn your video off. And then in terms of like the order of things, as soon as we start, we're going to let people in from the waiting room. And then I'm going to go over some community guidelines. And then I'm going to have Natalie, I'm going to pass it off to Natalie to do the official welcome and introduction. Okay.
Okay, so just let me know when you turn the video on.
You can actually turn it off now.
Hey, George, which order is your team going to go in? Are you going to introduce your team?
Yeah, we have introduction slides.
Okay, so Natalie will just introduce you at the beginning, or how do you want that done?
Yeah, I can just say everybody's names with it. Well, I can say the three of you and not TJ. I'll leave him out. And then whoever starts can go. Who's going to start first? Is it Calvin or George?
I would.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let everybody in.
Right.
And
Awesome.
here they come.
Hello, everybody. We're just going to give everyone a moment to come out of the waiting room. Now is a good time to check your audio and video settings. If you have any technical difficulty, please send your co-host or host a private message and we'll address it. All right, it looks like we've got everybody in. Welcome, my name is Jeff Javier and I'm with the University of Arizona Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities. I'm gonna go over a few community guidelines before we get started. Number one, please assume good faith from your colleagues. We are all here to learn together. Two, please use the chat or raise hand function if you wish to share. Participants are not permitted to unmute themselves. To share verbally, you will be called on after virtually raising your hand. Number three, please recognize and respect others' feelings, background, and cultural differences. Four, not all questions will be answered during the meeting. Five, please be judicious and efficient with shared information and experiences. If you are speaking, please limit yourself to 30 seconds or less. It can be just as courageous to listen as it is to share. So please do your best to understand when it's time to step back instead of stepping up. Number six, if you are speaking, please speak slowly as we do have an English captioner and ASL interpreters working diligently. This is true for meeting presenters as well as participants. And then at the end, we do have a survey. When you do complete that survey, you will get a certificate of attendance. And we will mention that again at the end of today's session. I will now hand it off to Natalie Luna Rose.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie Luna Rose, Outreach and Communications Manager for the Arizona Center for Disability Law. I want to welcome you to our 10th session of the African American Conference on Disabilities, our second year virtually. And thank you all for joining us today. I already see the chat going. If you are here for the first time, please put into the chat where you're from. We kind of like to keep tabs on who is joining us from wherever they are in the world today. We've had people join us during this conference from places like Egypt, Nairobi, New Zealand, Canada. So we've become international, which is very exciting. So thank you so much for your support. And speaking of support, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for this year's conference. Without their help, we could not make this possible. So thank you to our gold sponsor, Perkins Coie, our silver sponsors, Arizona Department of Health Services, Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs, Valley Toyota Dealers, our bronze sponsor, Ability 360, Advocates, Arizona Statewide Independent Living Council, Arizona State University, Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, Arizona Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Arizona Community Foundation, Banner University Health Plans, Diverse Ability Incorporated, Lexus Superstition Springs, National Disability Rights Network, Marks the Spot Barbershop, NAACP Maricopa County Branch, Raising Special Kids, and Unique's Multicultural Connections. And many thanks to our co-hosts, Arizona Center for African American Resources, the University of Arizona Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities, and Northern Arizona University Institute for Human Development, and my colleagues here at the Arizona Center for Disability Law. Again, thank you so much for your support of this amazing conference. So like I said, today is our 10th session. We had a session earlier this morning, which I hope you were able to attend on voting. Today's session is the self-advocacy movement, a civil rights movement for people with disabilities. It'll be a panel with Calvin Cook, who is with the Diverse Ability Incorporated, Alumni Relations Champion. George Garcia, Executive Director, Southwest Institute for Families and Children. And Bernard Baker, President, Self Advocates Becoming Empowered. So I'm going to pass this off to George. Thank you.
Greetings. Thank you everybody for attending today's presentation. Let me see if I can get my slides here together. Also, just a heads up there, John, I think Bernard was kicked off and is trying to log back in.
All right, thank you, George.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for everybody to log back in, I just want to start with this quick introduction about our presentation. Today, we're going to talk about the self-advocacy movement and as it pertains as a civil rights movement for people with disabilities. Today, we're going to have a panel discussion talking about how the self-advocacy movement has been similar to the civil rights movement faced by different communities, but especially the African American community. Today's presenters are going to be Calvin Cook. I'll be moderating the discussion, myself, George Garcia, and Bernard Baker. Unfortunately, TJ was not able to join us today, so we will just have to move forward. So without further ado, why don't we get Calvin to introduce himself. Calvin, do you want to share a few words about yourself?
Yes, please. Hi, my name is Calvin Cook. I am the president of the Inclusive Empowerment Network. We are a self-advocacy group here in Arizona. I am also a member at large with People First of Arizona. We are another self-advocacy group here in Arizona. I am also employed at Diverse Ability Incorporated as the Alumni Relations Champion, and I am currently attending Arizona State University. I am in their social work graduate program. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernard, have you been able to join us?
No, he isn't back on yet, George.
Okay, well, while we wait for Bernard to log back in, I'll just do a quick introduction of him. Bernard is president of Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered. That's one of the largest nationwide self-advocacy groups in the United States. He is a person with a disability and a self-advocate. He is a father of 3 and 2 grandchildren. And he's also president of the People First chapter in Georgia. And as I said, TJ was not able to join us. I myself, my name is George Garcia. I am the executive director of Southwest Institute for Families and Children. I graduated from Arizona State University with my master's in social work. And I also have a disability. I've been disabled since the age of 12 with a spinal cord injury. So before we begin, I want to talk a little bit about the self-advocacy movement in the United States. When we talk about the self-advocacy movement, one of the things that we like to talk about is that self-advocacy means being in control of your own life while choosing your own supports. It also means being part of your own community and that the community is a part of you. The self-advocacy movement started because people got tired of people telling them what to do. As well as the self-advocacy movement has come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Calvin, do you want to share any thoughts on that?
Yes, I feel like even though there is a lot more way for us to go as people with disabilities, there is a great push for that movement, and that should be noted.
Today, we're also going to talk about the self-advocacy movement in Arizona. Calvin, do you want to share this, talk about this slide?
Yes, so as I mentioned, I am the president of the Inclusive Empowerment Network and a member at large with People First of Arizona. We are 2 of the self-advocacy groups here in Arizona. We also have several others, such as Self-Direct down in Nogales, Arizona. And then we have one up in Flagstaff. Their name slips me. But that just goes to say that we have a number here in Arizona, and self-advocacy solutions, the statewide self-advocacy coalition that has been growing here in Arizona is a big contributor to what self-advocacy movement we have growing here in Arizona. Last year in September, our coalition was able to host a self-advocacy conference, and we were able to invite some of the self-advocacy groups from the state of Arizona to attend that conference and to let their voices be known. our coalition here has also been able to help provide some scholarships in order to help our self-advocacy groups grow, gather and provide what is necessary for their groups to flourish. So that has been very cool to see that process and progress. And every second and fourth Friday of the month, our coalition, which is called Self-Advocacy Solutions, has a Zoom meeting that we are calling Let's Talk every second and fourth Friday of the month, where we have self-advocates from the state gather and voice their opinions and their concerns. So that's like a free space for them to come and share with us what's happening in their lives and in their communities. And that helps us get a better idea of what we can do as self-advocates. And then every third Friday of the month, we have our self-advocacy solutions meeting, our coalition meeting, where each of us who are a part of self-advocacy solutions has an opportunity to voice what's happening with our committees and with our coalition as a whole.
Right. And if I could add a little bit more to that, the purpose of creating a self-advocacy coalition was that we thought that oftentimes self-advocates try to advocate for themselves, but we have a real difficult time in getting together and creating a larger movement and working together to create a larger movement. So by creating this coalition, a statewide coalition, our hope is that we can bring people together from across the state and work together to make change, not just on a larger statewide level, but even in the communities. So the purpose of the coalition would be that if there's a self-advocacy group in, for instance, one in Nogales, Arizona, and they're having problems with something that's very unique to their community, they can share those problems with the larger coalition. And we can, bring all self-advocates from around the state to work together to help bring a solution to some of the issues that are just maybe just local. So by pulling together everybody's voices, we can create change that's going to affect every community in Arizona, not just the larger ones. And that's our whole goal of creating the self-advocacy coalition.
I'm sorry, George, before you move on, I just wanted to ask, would you like to take questions during your presentation or would you prefer after?
No, we can take questions now.
All right, well, the chat is open for those who want to put their question in. Thank you.
And then also, I think we'll open it up to people sharing their thoughts within some of the questions that we'll have during the panel discussion. I want to make this a larger discussion about the self-advocacy movement, if people would like to share their thoughts and ideas.
Okay. Thank you. And for those, I know Jeff had mentioned at the beginning, we do have, you can either put it in the chat or if you want to use the raised hand function down at the bottom. Thank you.
And then, sorry, this is TJ's slide. Unfortunately, he was able to join us, but one of the things that he did talk about, the self-advocacy movement in Chicago, was that their main focus now has been to address COVID-19 misinformation and where people can get vaccines. They are working hard to include people with disabilities in all COVID-19 plans, as COVID-19 has been a very difficult thing that has affected people with disabilities. One of the other issues that they focus on in Chicago is access to affordable and accessible housing. I mean, as you can see, that's not just a problem here in Arizona, but it's a problem nationwide and included in Chicago. And then also special education and diverse learning in Chicago public schools. Has Bernard been able to join us?
No,
Fortunately not yet.
Okay.
if you would like to, I don't know if somebody can privately message one of us administrators with his phone number, we'd be happy to call him.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Let me stop sharing my screen for a quick sec while I get you this number.
And in the meantime, while we're waiting, just remember that you can, even if you have questions now, please feel free to put it in the chat. And sorry for the technical difficulties.
Hi, this is Jeff. Just wanted to remind our presenters that if you could please announce that you're speaking before you continue speaking, that'd be great.
Okay, we do have,
Sorry about that.
no, that's okay. We have TJ's number here, and then we were with Bernard, and trying to get his number, but I just wanted to say while we're waiting for that, that in looking in the chat, we've got people from today joining us, of course, from Arizona, Wisconsin, Colorado, Michigan, Texas, New Jersey, Ohio, Massachusetts. I know it's getting to be late afternoon for a lot of you. New Mexico, DC, Spokane, Saginaw. So again, thank you so much. And if you hadn't had a chance to put where you're from in the chat, please do.
Okay, sorry about that. Well, while we're still waiting for Bernard, one of his slides here is that we talked about the African American and the self-advocacy movement. In speaking with Bernard, and hopefully he can join us later, but one of the things that we talked about was that the African American experience has been that the people with disabilities are often segregated by race and by disability in society, especially as Bernard was growing up. African Americans with disabilities face struggles at home because of lack of resources and information. And the African American civil rights movement issues are some of the same issues faced by people with disabilities. Calvin, would you want to expand a little bit on that? Or how your experiences you've seen within your own life?
Yes, I have had personal experience being an individual who is African American and one with a disability. I didn't mention it before, but I have a spinal cord injury, a traumatic brain injury, and I have hydrocephalus. So I have a tube in my head that's helping to drain what extra fluid my brain is producing. As an individual who is African American and with this and one with a disability, I am also an individual who grew up in a single mother home. It was only my mother who took care of us. And also my mom is not African American. And I think as a result of that, many times it was just different. It felt different coming up. And it was more difficult, as George mentioned right now. There was a lack of resources, and it was rough. But by the grace of God, I'm here today, and I'm here to share that even though it can be a struggle for individuals who are African American and or individuals with disabilities, there is hope. And yeah, that's all I have to share on that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. George, still having a bit of a trouble, so we have called just to let you know, but we did have a few questions from earlier, if you don't mind me.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So from Michelle, she asked, what is the most important issue that the self-advocacy movement is facing?
Well, Calvin, do you want to take that one first?
Yes, I would say that keeping individuals involved. I know for us, for the Inclusive Empowerment Network specifically, recruitment and keeping individuals engaged in what things we are trying to do with the group has been a struggle. But being an individual with a disability myself, I think that it can just be a struggle trying to balance life and being involved in the self-advocacy movement. So I think that can be where a lot of our members of our group fall away from their involvement with the group and the self-advocacy movement. But at the same time, I feel like individuals with disabilities who are able to live the life that they want to live is what's the word? I feel like that is telling, and that is I'm struggling with finding the words, but I feel like if you are an individual with a disability who is able to live the life that you want to live, I feel like that says a lot, and that is showing self-advocacy right there. I feel like that is showing that it is possible for individuals to live the life that they want to live, to speak up for the things that they desire for themselves and for the life that they want to have.
Right. I agree with Calvin. I think that some of the biggest issues right now facing the self-advocacy movement is just getting people involved. It's great if people advocate on behalf of people with disabilities, but getting people with disabilities themselves to be part of the movement, to be actively out there and advocating for their rights, getting involved in the self-advocacy movement is one of our biggest things we're working towards. And we see that with the growth of the self-advocacy movements, our self-advocacy groups here in Arizona. We've started 3 new self-advocacy groups, and we've strengthened 2 other self-advocacy groups. So we're working on creating more of a statewide coalition, but it's always, one of our biggest things is just try and get people interested and realizing that if they're not involved in the movement themselves, pretty soon some of the rights that we have gained and we have fought for such a long time may soon be in danger. And I think I see TJ that just logged on.
Well, we're waiting for him. We do have 2 more questions if you want to take those, and then we can move on.
Yes, please.
Okay, this is from Carrie. Here in Brooklyn, we have several self-advocacy groups and Brooklyn Public Library partners with some of them. We have co-sponsored programs and conferences on a variety of topics. Does your coalition partner with other agencies like libraries? And if so, what do you do together?
Well, we've actually partnered a lot with, for instance, we've worked a lot with our UCEDs, our university centers on excellence in developmental disabilities. So we've been able to work well with those organizations on some of the different things that we've been working on. For instance, giving scholarship programs or scholarships to organizations to develop or strengthen self-advocacy groups. We've also worked a lot with our statewide or with SABE, the Self-Advocacy Becoming Empowered group, so that we can work on more national issues, including COVID-19 information. But to your point, I think that is something that we do need to work on more, is working outside of the disability community. Working with the library sounds like a great idea, and it's something that we should be working more towards, is just reaching out to organizations and programs that are not just within the disability field.
Okay, and then we have one more time for one more question, and then we're going to go back to the presentation because we do have TJ. So Bridget, if you would like to ask a question briefly. Bridget, are you
Yeah. I'm good, thank you.
welcome? Okay, George, go ahead. We're good with the questions for now.
Okay. Was TJ able to log on?
Hi, everyone. This is TJ speaking. My apologies for the huge delay.
No worries, TJ. TJ, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, for those who not familiar with my work or me as a person, my name is Timotheus Gordon Jr., also known as TJ Gordon. My pronouns are he, his, him pronouns. And I am a autistic person of color, and particularly a autistic Black man in Chicagoland area. I am a self-advocate and writer primarily, as well as a research associate at the University of Illinois at Chicago. As far as what I usually do as a research associate, I do research trainings and plain language guides on inclusion of people with disabilities in arts and culture, sports, business, and sex education, as well as anything related to race and disability also. And I'm also a co-founder of Chicagoland Disabled People of Color Coalition, also known as Chicagoland DPOC, which is a organization that is led and centered on people with disabilities, people of color with disabilities in the Chicagoland area. And we usually promote inclusion, disability pride, and acceptance in communities of color throughout the city of Chicago and the surrounding suburbs in Illinois.
Well, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
With that question, I guess I will start it up with the panel discussion now. TJ, why don't you first tell us, how did you get involved in the self-advocacy movement?
So, believe it or not, I didn't call myself a self-advocate as a kid in my childhood. In fact, I was one of those people who really wanted to erase my disability and try to fit in with everybody else. I mean, I did a lot of amazing things in my childhood, getting A's and B's in my classes, got involved in a lot of sports and other extracurricular activities. But I still felt left out because, you know, being autistic, I wasn't the most sociable person, I should say. And I tried my best to fit in by hiding my disability and being ashamed of my disability and to beat my disability. It wasn't until college that I slowly becoming more of an advocate for disability rights. I became more comfortable being myself and being autistic, especially when I met more people of color with disabilities and even more people on the autism spectrum like myself, that I became a self-advocate because I became more proud of my disability identity. And I want to I just wanted to spread the joy it's you made by creating opportunities where more people with disabilities from the inner city like myself could advocate for themselves and others. I got involved in Atlanta, but then once I came back to Chicago in 2015, I got even more involved through Access Living's racial justice initiatives. And it grew to so many things I can't even name anymore because I'm involved in a lot. But I think without recognizing that there is a community, I don't think I would have been ever a part of the self-advocacy movement, to be honest.
Great. Well, that sounds like you've been busy within the movement now that you are involved. Calvin, do you want to tell us how you started your involvement in the self-advocacy movement?
Yes, please. I too did not embrace the disability community as much as I do now when I was younger. I was included within the community of friends I had for the most part, even though I was the only one with a disability when I was younger. And I think part of me was ashamed. My disability is a physical disability for the most part, and it's pretty apparent. I have a disability. But as I got older, I remember my mom had, I guess she found out about this conference, and her and I had attended it. I forget what it was exactly, but it was disability related. And I remember attending that conference when I was like 16. And that's when my eyes started to open a bit more to like the disability community. And then when I was 18, I started attending some of the support groups at Ability 360. And then I remember when I was 19 and I got involved in the Phoenix Workforce Connection, which was like a job training program where you would go to this program for like 5 weeks and then like you would go work somewhere within those 5 weeks. And after that program, well, actually during that program, I was invited to one of the meetings that the group known as the Inclusive Empowerment Network now. It was a different name before, but that's their name now. I was invited to one of their meetings, and that was actually when I was 20. So 2010, and yeah, that helped to open up my eyes more. And I really liked, I was really enjoying the social aspect that was offered at those meetings, and I was really enjoying that I had other individuals that I could relate to. So I continued to attend those meetings, and like once you get involved in this movement, more opportunities come about. So opportunities came about for me to speak and to share my experiences, and I was seeing how that was helping other individuals, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being able to relate and to help uplift others. And yeah, that's how I got involved.
Well, thank you. As a person of color or African American, what has been your experience in the advocacy movement? TJ, you want to answer that one?
Yes, I can answer that one. Wow, I feel like as a person of color, it's been a roller coaster ride. One, and I am grateful to see a shift in the self-advocacy movement where we're focusing more on we're focusing not only on disability as a one issue, but also we are adding more to disability also. We connecting disability to other things also. We connecting disability to healthcare, employment, being a person of color, being a person with various genders or sexualities. We able to connect with people more because we realize that disability touches people in many different ways, and it affects how we live our lives in many different ways. On the other hand, I feel burned out at times because I don't know if some of you all feel this way, those in the panel or those in the audience, but I feel sometimes that some of us who are disabled, people of color or people of color with disabilities, we had to be the voice of our community. We had to be the voice of the community because it's not many of us out there like myself or Laurel or the panelists or even people I know from various circles who are people of color with a disability. It gets tiresome. And I wish we could raise the voices of more people of color with disabilities that could provide a range of experiences from self-advocacy to businesses to school, parenting. There's a lot of things we could talk about other than just self-advocacy. Self-advocacy is great, but we want to also address the whole experience of being a person of color with a disability. So part of that is to add all or many of the dimensions of that experience. Yes, I agree with you, Monica, especially parenting. I am a parent of 2 children, a goddaughter and a son. And that experience is unique to some of us. So But yeah, like I said, it's been a roller coaster ride because of those range of experiences that I experienced.
And George, I'm sorry, Bernard has actually been able to join us.
Oh, oh, hey, Bernard, are you there?
Bernard, you might need to press *6 on your phone to unmute.
And also, I can't see the chat, so if anybody has anything that they want to share, if Natalie or John, if you just want to chime in with that, because I can't see it.
No problem.
No problem, thank you. Bernard, were you able to join us?
Bernard, if you can hear us, it is a *6 on your phone to unmute.
What we're waiting for Bernard. Kelvin, do you want to tell us what your experience is like in the self-advocacy movement?
Yes, I feel like it's been what's the word? Sorry, I feel like it's been a fulfilling experience. I feel like it's been helpful for my growth as an individual with a disability, and as a self-advocate, I was definitely feeling what TJ was mentioning. I feel like it's been an interesting experience. Otherwise, I've been wrestling with it myself. I've written about it for like school assignments. It's an interesting intersection to be at. I feel like my disability is recognized before my Blackness, my color. Yeah, it's interesting. I have felt secluded within the Black circles, and I have blamed it on my disability. Yeah, it's interesting overall, but I was definitely feeling what TJ was talking about.
Hey, Bernard, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, welcome. So
I'm sorry about that. It was
now
technology
going to,
problems.
oh, it happens to the best of us. So we're now going into the panel discussion questions. And
Okay.
one of the questions that we
That's
did
fine.
ask earlier in the group, and if I could go back just one question for everybody, but I want Bernard to share his answer. How did you first get involved in the self-advocacy movement? So you have a
I got
pretty good
involved.
history within it.
I got involved in it because a friend of mine and I was going to a MARTA station one night to walk some friends of ours to the train. They just came over to visit. And this lady hit him. He got hit by a car and he got flipped in the air 3 times. And he was in an electric chair. We both was in electric chairs and they folded his chair up. He lived about 2 weeks till after his birthday and he died. So I actually didn't do anything for about 2 or 3 months, even driving my own chair. And, it took me a minute to get back involved. But I got involved with a friend of mine by the name of Mark Johnson, who told me about this group called ADAPT. He came to a center meeting that I was at, and he told me about this group called ADAPT. That was one way I got involved, but I had really got involved a long time ago. And that's what really got me involved in the movement, is to join this group called ADAPT. I went to Washington, D.C. with suits and ties on, and then I saw people with tennis shoes, blue jeans, and all this stuff on. And they were telling me that the police was telling me that I couldn't go through a barricade because we wanted to get in to talk to some people about putting lips on buses. And they were telling me what I couldn't do, and I slid right through the policeman's legs and went right on in the building. And I've been totally in the movement since then. That was back in 1983 or 82. But I've been totally, really into the movement since then.
Wow. And as an African American, what has been your experience in the self-advocacy movement?
In the self-advocacy movement, as being an African American, I tell people all the time, the ADA law has been passed for us, but if we're not careful, we'll lose it. We have to be the watchdogs on the ADA, because you got temporary able-bodied people, and the reason I say temporary able-bodied, because you'll never know when you're going to wind up with a disability. And that's why I tell people, and I've heard the whole conversation. I just couldn't see you guys.
All right, no worries. All right, the next question,
serious.
and I'll ask this question to TJ first. Is the self-advocacy movement a civil rights movement?
Yes, it is. And I tell people all the time, it's like a movement that Martin Luther King fought, but we just wasn't in it. And it wasn't about, it was about getting people to ride buses, and the civil rights movement really contains to us, because one of the things that we started when I first started was trying to get people with disabilities to ride the bus. So I tell people we're fighting the same fight that Martin fought a long time ago.
What do you think, TJ? Is the self-advocacy movement a civil rights movement?
Oh, absolutely. I think when we talk about the civil rights movement in regards to what Dr. King, Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, and others have fought for when it comes to voting rights and other civil rights for African Americans. We could talk about immigration. We could talk about the disability rights movement or self-advocacy movement. All of those are civil rights movements, because at the end of the day, it's all about the right to live and prosper as human beings, and having the tools and support to be great. That's what it was about. Yes, we may go on about it different ways. Yes, those movements may address different things, but at the end of the day, if you wanted to boil down all of the civil rights movements in the past and what's going on right now, it's really about feeling valued as a human and having the right to enjoy the human experience just like everybody else, with the tools that you may need to get to that enjoyment, whether you need them or save it for later.
What do you think, Calvin? Is the self-advocacy movement a civil rights movement?
Yes, as my partners on this panel mentioned, I think it started with Martin Luther King, and all those other leaders in the community. And I think the disability movement is a continuation of what those leaders had imparted to us, the values and the importance of equality. And I feel like our movement being a continuation of that is even more reason why I feel like all individuals, whether you have a disability currently, as Bernard mentioned, temporary able-bodied people, whether you are with a disability now or not, I feel like it's even more important that we come together and that we recognize each other's struggles and what we're going through. I feel like people without disabilities currently can be as much benefit to the disability community as people with disabilities can be to these other communities. And I feel like if we all if we do a better job at coming together, because none of us are perfect, so it's going to be a struggle and a transition. But if we can just do better about coming together, then I think everything will look better overall.
George, we do have a comment in the chat if you'd like me to read it. It kind of relates to this question.
Yes, please.
The disability advocacy messaging has been mostly a white supremacy narrative. What can the community do to make Black voices heard, respected, and honored in the disability community?
That's a good question. What do you think, Bernard? What can we do to get the African American voice?
One thing that we can do, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? One thing we can do is we can stick together and work as a team. It's not about color, it's about people and feelings. And also letting everybody get a chance so that their voices be heard. Even though we have to speak up for ourselves, we also have to speak for people that use communication boards. We have to give a person a chance to find out what their hidden talents are. Because everybody has a talent. And you have to give everybody a chance to use their talent.
What do you think, TJ? How can we raise up the voices of the African American community within the disability community?
I'll address it two ways, and I think it was mentioned about connecting the experience of white people to people of color, specifically Black people. I think a way to do that is to listen to each other, give us having a space to talk about what's going on in the world, but then also listening deeply to each other, because it may so happen that we are going through the same thing, but maybe there's things neither of us considered before. And I think that's how movements started and thrived now, even in the past, when I think we mentioned before, when we realized that even though we may come from different places, we want the same thing and we're struggling for the same thing. In terms of how to raise of Black voices, create the opportunities for Black people with disabilities to speak up for themselves or to showcase what they can do. And part of that is not speaking for them, but to let them do their thing. That's part of self-advocacy anyway, right? Speaking up for yourself. Apply that to people of color with disabilities, especially Black folks with disabilities.
What do you think, Kelvin?
I'm an artist as well, and what came to my mind was making more rap music. But that aside, I feel like when my fellow panelists have to say and share speaks volumes. I feel like just coming together and using our experiences and our talents in order to make our voices known is the best way to do that. I feel like whether you are Black or not, I feel like if we just come together better, we can use allies, individuals who are not Black, and we can use their voices in order to help empower our movement, and we can benefit them in ways as well. So let's just come together.
And of course, Kelvin says more rap music because aside from everything that he does in the disability community, he's also an aspiring rapper and goes by the name Dirty Red. So if you want to listen to his music, you can find him on Spotify, I believe, right?
Yes, and I'll put my name in the chat. I spell it differently, so I'll put it in the chat.
All right.
We do have another question in the chat, if you're okay, or if you want to go to the next slide.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
How can people without disabilities truly support and become better allies to the self-advocacy movement?
One way they can do that is we can all become, they can make us feel a part of the community. As I said earlier, this is Bernard, I'm sorry. As I said earlier in the week, and I said to my panel mates, we have to work as a team, but also society has to be a part of our team. And what I mean by working a team, as people with disabilities work together, we have to also make ourselves be a part of society and society be a part of us. So that's what I mean by teamwork, both working together.
What do you think, TJ? How can people without disabilities help the self-advocacy movement?
Oddly enough, I think I gave a couple presentations, including one about a couple hours ago about ways that people without disabilities could support people in the self-advocacy movement. I think one way I could suggest is if you want to learn more about the self-advocacy movement or disabled people in general, I would suggest reading books by people with disabilities, check out their blogs or their social media handles, or check out their organizations. I think that's a great way to start.
And what do you think, Calvin? How can allies be part of the self-advocacy movement?
I would encourage allies, individuals who are temporarily able-bodied, to attend more events involving individuals with disabilities, such as this conference is a great, I feel like this conference does a great job at allowing us individuals with disabilities to voice our experiences and our concerns. I feel like it could be beneficial for allies to attend self-advocacy meetings. And then when we have events down at the Capitol, wherever your capital is at, I feel like that can be powerful as well. Yeah, that's what I imagine at least.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. And we kind of answered this one earlier, but not everybody on the panel was here. So what are some of the important issues facing people with people in the self-advocacy movement? Bernard, what do you think? What are some of the important issues we face?
Number one important issue is transportation. Number two is housing. And number three is also education. And the reason I use that is because number one will be transportation, because it's hard for people with disabilities to get somewhere to get around. If you find an accessible vehicle or you find an accessible ride, it costs you out of the wazoo. Number two, if you are a person with a disability and you don't have Section 8, it costs you a lot. And the reason I'm saying number three is people look at people with disabilities, instead of looking at them as a person first, they look at their educational background. And some people with disabilities, their educational background is not very high at all. But that doesn't mean that person doesn't have a hidden talent that they can use to do their job or either do the advocacy work. And that's why I bring giving people with disabilities, not only Afro-Americans, people with disabilities, but all people with disabilities, a chance to prove themselves. Because me, myself, I'm a better hands-on person, and I am at reading a lot of books. I can't comprehend them as well as I can be hands-on. But a lot of people, if you give them a chance, they'll do what they need to do. All we ask for is a fair chance in life.
What do you think, TJ? What are some of the important issues facing people in the self-advocacy movement?
Oh yeah. So many to go through. It will probably take us another hour, but in respect to you all's time, definitely access to learning about our sexuality, our relationship styles, or our desires to start a family or even be parents is an important issue. Oftentimes when we mention sex, relationships, and disability, we don't think ourselves as attractive or sexy. We don't be considered to be good parents simply because we have a disability. So I am appreciative of people in the disability community who are promoting more sex education for the disability community, providing more examples of how to be a parent with disability, especially if you have a child with a disability on top of it. Yes, dating while disabled is so hard. Trust me, as a parent and a person who's been a serial dater for 20 years, it's tough. I wish we have more resources in how to navigate the dating world or the sexuality world as a person with disability and not just a person.
Oh, thank you. What do you think, Calvin? I know we kind of talked about this earlier, but anything you want to add to that? What are some of the important issues facing people with in the self-advocacy movement?
Yes, well, I feel like my fellow panelists, I feel like what they mentioned are big concerns as well as what I mentioned earlier, about individuals getting involved in self-advocacy. What my fellow panelists just mentioned were things on my mind as well earlier, and I definitely have had struggles with those things as well. So I think overall, just encouraging and helping educate other individuals with disabilities on how to get involved in all areas of self-advocacy is going to be a great benefit for us individuals with disabilities overall.
All right. All right. Well, next question. Where do you see the self-advocacy movement going in the future? What do you think, Bernard?
I see it getting stronger, but we have to work together to make it stronger. What I mean by I see it getting stronger, I see more younger people getting involved, and a lot more people with disabilities getting involved. Not only older people, younger generation people getting involved, and the older people being consultants or whatever to the younger people. And I see us getting a better movement than we have now. But we've all got to work as a team and work together. Together we will win, divided we will fall. And
What do you think, TJ?
that's my protection.
Oh, sorry about that. TJ, where do you see the self-advocacy movement going in the future?
Honestly, I'm excited for the future of the self-advocacy movement, especially in arts, entertainment, and even sports. Let's continue to showcase opportunities where people with disabilities could act, could participate in sports, could participate in writing books or making art and making money off of it. Also, let's also get behind people with disabilities who want to be producers, speakers, and basically behind the scenes in arts, culture, sports, and entertainment as well.
Great. What do you think, Calvin? Where do you see the movement going?
I'm also excited. I'm seeing a lot of big things, a lot of big changes coming about in real time, and it's very exciting. It's making me more hopeful for the future. I feel like individuals with disabilities are and will continue to be listened to more. And I feel like more events like this that allow us to voice our experiences and our concerns is only gonna benefit us more going forward. So I'm looking forward to more of that happening.
Nice. It's a very positive look.
George, we have a few questions in the chat if you wanted to address them.
Sure.
Okay, and just to let you know, we've got about a 10 minutes left of the session, so we can at least give at least a minute for closing, just to let you know.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. How do you view or address movies that portray those with disabilities, but may not always have an actor with a disability?
Wait, can you repeat that question again?
Of course. How do you view or address movies that portray those with disabilities, but may not have an actor with a disability playing that role?
This is
Good question.
this. Sorry, who's on? Who would like to go first? Sorry, I ain't know who.
TJ.
If you don't mind, can I go ahead and do it? This is Bernard.
Sure.
Yeah,
If
go
you
ahead,
have an
Bernard.
actor that doesn't have a disability, portraying an actor with a disability, I think people still get the message, but they get it stronger if the actor is a person with a disability. I think you can get out a better message if you're a person with a disability when it comes to talking about your issues. Because I think people with disabilities doing their own thing makes them feel a lot better, and it makes the word get out a lot stronger. I have nothing against actors portraying people with disabilities, but they need to understand the disability first, not the person. The actors need to understand that they're portraying people with real disabilities. And I think if we could get them to understand what the disability is that they're portraying before they do it, I think it'll be better for both of us. And that's my thoughts on that.
What do you think, TJ?
Not saying that actors haven't done a good job.
To answer the question about what I think about media representation of disability, I actually posted a link to this great documentary called The Code of the Freaks that addresses exactly how disability has been portrayed for the longest, especially when actors without disabilities portray disabled characters. For my personal opinion, it's mixed. I like some of the more accurate representation of disability coming out right now, even by characters who may not, from actors who may not be disabled. One, I still wish there are more actors with disabilities who could, talk about their own experience or create their own shows or get highlighted. I'm glad City Pretty Lolo is getting some shine in her series on HBO Max. But at the same time, even with that, we still give the trope that in movies, disabled people are meant to be a representation or a bridge for people without disabilities. They kind of use us to address issues of people without disabilities as opposed to addressing disability itself.
What do you think, Kelvin? People with disabilities portraying people with disabilities.
I'm in agreement with my co-presenters. I feel like individuals with disabilities should be given more opportunity to be represented in a film. But I mean, if we're not able to locate somebody with a disability, as long as the individual without a disability who is playing an individual with a disability has as much understanding as they can about that disability and our community, I don't have an issue with it.
All right. Before we get any more questions from the audience, I want to see if we can get this one before our time is up, because I think it's important that people get involved in the self-advocacy movement. So with that, the next question that I have is, how can people get involved in the self-advocacy movement? What do you think, Bernard?
Number one, by attending meetings that we have, functions that we have. Even sometimes I do fundraising for some groups of mine, even participating in fundraisers and any events that we have. That way you will get to know the person, and then you will get to understand some of the things that they're doing for the movement. Not only that, becoming a friend, a close friend to a person with a disability, and y'all working together on some, because people with disability have some of the same issues as temporary able-bodied people. So I think, if we get together and work on an issue until it's finished, it'll be better for both ends.
What do you think, TJ? How can people get involved?
Two ways, in my opinion, especially if you're a person with a disability who wants to be in the self-advocacy movement. If you know of any self-advocacy groups that's out there already, usually like whether it's a standalone self-advocacy group or a self-advocacy group within organizations like the ARC, that would be a great start, or your centers for independent living. That's another good place to find groups you could join. Or if you don't have local groups you could go to, you can also connect with self-advocates online and get involved there. I think the internet has connected a lot of self-advocates to others throughout the whole world.
Yeah. Calvin, what do you think?
I was gonna add, I felt like attending some of those events I mentioned earlier, self-advocacy, group meetings, events like this, and then as TJ mentioned, trying to locate some communities online. I know Facebook has some groups, so yeah, just searching, seeking.
All right. So with that said, I think we're coming up at the end of our time. If you wanted to get more information about some of the groups that we mentioned here, we have self-advocacy solutions. You can find us on our website at swifamilies.org and just clicking on the tab self-advocacy solutions. Or if you want to get more involved with self-advocates becoming empowered, you can go to sabeusa.org. And if you would like to get in contact with me, my contact information is on the screen. And I can be reached at g.garcia@swifamilies.org.
Okay. Thank you so much, George, for you and your panelist discussion today. Thank you to Calvin, Bernard, and TJ for, I think, a really interesting discussion. I think we probably could have gone a little bit longer today. So thank you for all who put in the chat. You can get your certificate of attendance if you click on our survey link, which John just put in right now. Thank you. And I would like to thank all our sponsors as well that I have just put in the chat. I'd like to thank our interpreters today, Akili, Crystal, thank you. And our captioner, Tracy, again, thank you for your hard work. We have one more day of the African American Conference on Thursday at 9 a.m. And that first session will be on fair housing with our legal director, Rose Daly Rooney. And our last closing session will be at 1 o'clock with Derek Willis, moving from safe spaces to brave spaces. So please register for that. And there is a new link. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with our previous link, and I'll put it in the chat as well. And if there's no further questions, I wish you all a very good afternoon, and we hope to see you on Thursday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, take care.
Thank you. George, when you get a chance, give me a call.